Our words carry a lot of weight. Unfortunately, many of us have fallen into the habit of using certain phrases that, even though they might sound correct, they are not biblically accurate and can be damaging to others and even to our own spiritual growth. Even well-meaning and sincere Christians sometimes say these words without knowing whether what they just said is false or is according to God's words. Here are 7 things Christians need to stop saying. Number 1. Heaven helps those who help themselves. If you're a Christian, you've probably heard this statement time and time again. You might even have said it yourself. But you see, this phrase is not biblical, and neither is it accurate. Heaven doesn't help those who have the ability to help themselves. It's the other way around. Our help comes from God alone, not from our own strengths. If we could help ourselves, we wouldn't need God. In fact, God doesn't help those who think they can help themselves. That's what Apostle Paul meant when he said, "Where I am weak, he makes me strong." We can make decisions and take action, but we can't do anything without the strength that God gives us. He helps us even when we don't deserve it. Think of it this way. Even when we're sleeping, God is still looking out for us and protecting us. At that time, we aren't helping ourselves. When we go out and come back safely, it's still God who gives us the power to go out and come back. When we go to work and make money, it's still God that gives us the power to make wealth. When it comes to eating from our labors, it's still God that gives us the power to eat. Ecclesiastes chapter 5 verse 19 says, "Furthermore, God has given riches and wealth to every man, and he has enabled him to enjoy them, to accept his lot, and to rejoice in his labor." This means God gives us the ability to do what we do. We often take the things we receive from God for granted, and this is why we begin to assume we can help ourselves in the first place. Psalms 121:1 says, "I lift up my eyes to the hills, from where my help comes from. My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth." Number 2. Experience is the best teacher. Experience might be an important part of our lives, but it's definitely not the best teacher. We might learn from our experiences, but that doesn't mean that we should seek them out to teach us life lessons. Experience can be a tricky teacher, offering valuable lessons at the cost of big risks. Experience sounds great in theory, but often in practice, it can leave people worse off than before. Take, for instance, the story of Adam and Eve in the Bible. They had a one-time experience with the temptation to eat the forbidden fruit, and that experience landed the entire world in the mess it is in today. From their experience alone, we can infer that experience isn't always the best teacher. Consider, too, the times when you wanted to try something new and ended up regretting it. Solomon wisely said that, "A wise man fears the Lord and shuns evil." There's no need to go through something bad just to learn something, because it may leave you with irreparable damage. We must understand that some experiences can be so traumatic that they leave us shaken for years, or worse, forever. The sky is the limit. People often say the sky is the limit, but they're wrong. And that's something that every Christian needs to stop saying, lest they limit God's power in their own lives. The sky is not the limit, but instead, it's merely a beginning. The Bible speaks highly of the power of the human mind, and it tells us that God is able to do far more than we can ever dream or imagine. Our potential in life is so much greater than the sky. It is limited only by our willingness to reach higher. This is why it's important to challenge ourselves, stretch our boundaries, and strive for something greater. We may think of the sky, God only looks at the heart. It's all too easy to use this phrase as an excuse to live recklessly, and then justify our actions by saying God only looks at the heart and not how we live. As much as we would like to hold on to the phrase, God also looks at our actions and how we present our lives. And that's because the things we say and the things we do all come from the heart. For example, when God confronted Cain in Genesis 4, he asked him why he looked angry. It wasn't because he couldn't see inside Cain's heart. It was because he could see the expression of anger on Cain's face. It was his actions that gave away his feelings. Likewise, the Bible often makes references to the attire of a harlot, which is a physical manifestation of her inner desires. Today we see many believers live recklessly as well as dress inappropriately, but then choose to excuse their misleading behaviors by saying God only looks at the heart. Even when their controversial actions are called out and questioned, they will always justify it with this statement. Yet we see that the Bible tells us that every man shall be judged according to their deeds. We can't hide behind the excuse of a good heart to justify our wrongs. We can't simply say one thing and do another and expect God to be okay with it. He sees both our hearts and our actions. That's why so many of the Psalms focus on cleansing our hands and our hearts. So it's not just about what's in our hearts, it's about the way we live and talk and act. Number 5. Swearing. We hear it everywhere, in movies, TV shows, and even from our friends and family. Swearing has become so commonplace that it's almost normal, but it doesn't have to be. But as Christians, we have to remember that it's not okay. Jesus was very clear when he said, "Do not swear at all," Matthew 5:34. He didn't say, "Swear as little as possible." He said, "Don't swear at all." We don't need to stoop to that level. We can rise above it. We can use our words to bring peace, not arguments. We can use our words to bring understanding, not conflict. We can use our words to bring beauty to the world instead of profanity. Words are powerful, and we should use them wisely. That's why it's so important for us as Christians to watch our language and remember that we are always held to a higher standard. Let our yes be yes, and our no be no. Let's be an example to the world of what it looks like to speak with love and respect, no matter what the circumstances. Good luck. Life comes with a variety of battles and challenges, and as Christians we ought to remember that it's not always up to luck to decide the outcome. We are all blessed with diverse gifts, opportunities, and resources, and it's important to remember that it is ultimately God who guides us towards success and gives us the strength to handle every situation in life. We must remember that luck is a temporal and unreliable concept, whereas blessings from God are permanent and guaranteed. Proverbs 16:33 says that, "The lot is cast into the lap, but every decision is from the Lord." This implies that no matter how hard we try, it's ultimately God who steers the wheel of our destiny. For instance, if a job applicant is about to appear for an interview, wishing him or her luck doesn't do much. Instead, what really helps is sending them strength and blessings from God. Similarly, if someone is about to sit an important exam, it's more effective to pray for them and encourage them to rely on God's guidance and trust in His Word, rather than just wishing them good luck. So instead of relying on luck, it's always better to seek strength and guidance from the Lord. Number 7. Taking God's name in vain. We are often guilty of disregarding the authority of God's name. Just about everywhere you turn, in movies, television, music, and conversation, people are carelessly tossing around phrases like, "Oh my God," "Oh my gosh," "Geez," and so on. We might think it's funny or an acceptable expression of surprise, but to God these are not just words. They are a violation of the third commandment. "Thou shalt not take the Lord's name in vain," Exodus 27. Think of it like this. If we wouldn't want someone saying something disrespectful about us to others, then why should we do that to God? We need to remember that God deserves far more respect than any of us ever will. He created the world. He offers us His love and redemption. He is the source of all blessing and peace. We should never use His name lightly or without reverence, for that is denying His power, His authority, and His goodness. Rather, let us strive to honor God in our words and actions. Let us look to Jesus Christ as our model of faithful living and reflect His character as we carry ourselves through this world. Let us remember that our words have power and that we should use that power to build God's kingdom, not tear it down. So there you have it. Thank you for watching. If you love our videos, please feel free to subscribe to our channel.